Welcome to the Mid-Ohio Valley Public Forum video podcast. This podcast features issues of interest to the residents of the Mid-Ohio Valley area. Right now, with the coronavirus pandemic, civic life has changed greatly throughout our country.
This is an election year, and one of the things that has changed is that candidates cannot campaign for office the way they normally would. They can't get out there to all the fairs and festivals and dinners and meet and greet folks and shake hands.
So many of our initial podcasts will be interviews with candidates who are running for state and local office. We're focusing on those with primary challenges first. So if you're a candidate and you're interested in being interviewed, you can reach out to us either through our Facebook page, MOV Public Forum, or via email, that's movpublicforum@gmail.com. Today we'll be interviewing Ag Commissioner candidate Dave Miller.
It's a crucial job that requires that candidates actually have to have more qualifications than those who run for governor. Also, here in West Virginia, we're one of the few states that elect our agricultural commissioner. Therefore, I think it behooves all of us voters to know a little something about the agricultural commissioner and about the job that it entails. So welcome, Dave. We're glad you could join us this morning.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
With that, let's dive right in. Give us your best 1-minute introduction pitch speech.
Okay. Well, I am Dave Miller. I'm from Preston County. I live in a little town of Tunnelton, which maybe has 100 people. I live on a 100-acre farm. We raise cattle, have greenhouses. I have some Belgian horses. I went to Fairmont State College, University now, and then I got my master's degree from UVA in administration. And I've been a teacher, a coach, a principal, a director of personnel. I have been in the House of Delegates in West Virginia, in the state Senate. I was also Deputy Commissioner of Agriculture for Gus Douglas for several years. And then I went to work at WVU as their government relations person. I served 4 presidents there. Then the last 5 years while at WVU, I was Associate Provost and Director of Extension for the whole state of West Virginia. So I've been in all 55 counties. We had an office in every county. So I know the state, I know the regions. I was born here, so I know pretty much about the state, its people, and everything like that. So I think I'm uniquely qualified with the things I have been able to do to be Commissioner of Agriculture.
Well, candidates for Commission of Agriculture are required to meet certain stringent criteria in order to be a candidate. In addition to the usual requirements to run for elective office in West Virginia, the commissioner, according to West Virginia State Code, quote, shall be a practical farmer, learned in the science of agriculture, and shall have made agriculture his chief business for a period of 10 years immediately preceding the election. So given that all the candidates running for agricultural commissioner have to meet those requirements, what sets you apart? What's your edge?
Well, I think that my edge is that I have been a farmer for 30 years or more in West Virginia. I have also have I don't have a degree in agriculture, but I have hands-on experience of practically working the land, working cattle, and doing different things like that. I have, as I said, been Director of Extension. I've traveled the state. I know the state with that. And I think that I'm apart from the others because, as I mentioned in my first part of my interview, I actually worked in the Department of Agriculture with Commissioner Douglas, and I have hands-on experience of how the department runs and what it should do. I have worked with extension agents who do agriculture, 4-H and all that. I've worked with the Davis College of Agriculture at the university. So I have a lot of experience, and I think this whole thing kind of sets me apart from the rest of them.
Well, what's the main motivation that made you decide to run for office now?
I always wanted to do this. When I went to work for Commissioner Douglas, he said, "I want you to be the next commissioner." Well, Commissioner Douglas lived a long time and served for 40 some years. So I never had a chance to run, and I went on to be at WVU. So I never had a chance really to do it. So after I retired, then I talked to my wife and I said, "I've always wanted to do this, and I really like agriculture. We've always been involved in it." I said, "I think I'm going to try it before it's over." So that's why we're running, and I don't have to run. I don't want to add this to my resume. I don't want to do anything like that. I just want to do it for the people and for agriculture in West Virginia.
Well, in West Virginia, as I'm sure you know, about 98% of the farms are small farms. And of those, about 98, 97% are owned by families. So this is completely opposite to what's the case in most of the agricultural field throughout the country. I lived out in the Central Valley of California, and the farms are measured in thousands and thousands of acres.
Right.
You've got some of the largest farms in the world. I was sandwiched between Westlake Farm and Harris Ranch. If you've heard of, I'm sure you've probably heard of those two places.
Yes.
So West Virginia is 180 degrees different from that. So if you're elected Commissioner of Agriculture, what are you going to do to help those small family farms compete with that big mega conglomerate corporate food system?
I don't know if we can actually compete, on the same level that they are, but I think that we can develop these farms in West Virginia and develop our own, what I call, and my wife and I did it here, we call it a niche market. You find your niche, and that's what you sell in. And I think maybe I shouldn't say this, but if any one thing came out of this virus is that people are now looking at their local farms and their local farmers to get supplies. And maybe this will help that young farmer or that farmer that's in business to sell his products to the people, and we don't have to depend on this global economy to supply our meat or vegetables or whatever. So that's going to be my takeoff, is to get these small farms. I've worked with farm to school. I've worked with farm to table, farmers markets. My wife and I sold 18 years at the farmers market in Morgantown. So I think those are all things that we have to push and get out there and get people involved and get you as a citizens wanting to buy from me as a farmer. You know where that is. And I'm going to push for origin of label, origin of market. Where did that come from? Is it fresh? Is it shipped around the world or what? So I think those are my things that I'm going to work on to promote the small farms and help them get up and going and have a market for their products. Now, the other end of this is farmers need help in getting started. They don't have the money. So one of my first things I'd like to do is to hire a grant writer. And this grant writer would work with farmers to find grants and money to help them get started. And then the department on the other end will also find markets for these people to sell their products. I think those are two things. You have to have a beginning and you have to have an end. And I think right now, farmers need help in getting started. And then we also need to help them sell their products.
Well, just like the population of West Virginia, which is in decline and has been for decades, the number of farms in our state is declining also. At the peak back in the 1930s, we reached a high of 97,000 farms. Today, we're down to somewhere around 20,000. and we're shedding farm operations on about a weekly basis. Our farmers retire and the next generation doesn't want to continue with the family farm operation for a host of reasons. Do you have a plan for turning this around? And can you let us in on that?
Yes, I do. I have written several articles on my Facebook page that people can go to. And one of my goals is to get young people involved in agriculture. But as you know, it's expensive to buy a tractor, a baler, and a farm. They'll be so far in debt, but in investing all that, they never will pay out. So we have devised a plan that maybe a older farmer like myself, I can help young farmers getting started by letting lease my property. And that way they don't have that income or that outgoing money to pay for the farm. And maybe we can encourage those young people to buy older equipment. You know, there's a lot of older equipment out there that's still usable, and it won't cost near as much as the expensive. And I like to set up a group of farmers in different areas of the state that would sort of be like advisors to these young people. These young people can go meet with them and the farmer can say, you don't want to do that. Here's the best way to do that, and so they can have an idea, because farming is not all good and bad. It's not all good, it's not all bad, but there is good and bad times in it. So young people have to learn that, but we have to get, and I think we need to, and I will be fighting continuously for FFA programs in schools, because I think these people need to do that. I'll encourage, which I think they do a good job now, Extension does a good job with 4-H and getting young people involved in that. So I think that's what we have to do. Like you're right, the average farmer in West Virginia is 60 years old and they got gray hair like mine, so we need to get some young blood. And if people want to go to my Facebook page and look at some of the things I've written some articles about that, and I have some plans laid out for that.
I love that idea of the mentorship. I call it phone a friend. I call my dad and ask him for help. But,
right.
What should I do? That's a great idea.
Right.
So, Dave, would you give us your thoughts on sustainable farming? Now, you'll need to define it a little bit, maybe, because not everyone may watch this knows exactly what it is. But do you know farmers in West Virginia who are doing it successfully? And do you have a plan for encouraging more of it?
I think it's a good idea. Sustainable farming is where you do a lot of the work, and I need to capitalize the word work, because you don't use a lot of mechanized equipment to do this. It's sort of like rotational grazing or crop rotation when you plant different places each year. They may plant oats here one year, corn here, and then rye as a cover crop. So it takes a lot of ingenuity. And if you're going to do it right, you don't use a lot of insecticides, you don't use a lot of herbicides. So it takes a lot of manual labor to be sustainable and not to harm the land, or that. I raise honeybees, and I've had awful trouble with keeping them alive. And we've heard all kinds of stories about maybe it's spraying along the roadsides, maybe it's these companies spray power lines, or maybe farmers using insecticides. So I think that's part of sustainable agriculture, is kind of reduce those type things, and not to hurt the agriculture. But sustainable agriculture is you sustain the land by using itself. You use that as to, you plant certain crops to put the nitrogens back in the soil, and you don't do as much tillage maybe as you always did, So it is, I know a few people that are trying this, but it is work, and it takes a different mindset. So we will try to get people involved in that, but it's kind of hard to move them from the traditional way to something new. I think you have to show the good points to that.
So another new trend is something called urban farming. People are using vacant land in urban areas and farming it. We live in Parkersburg, So we're, for West Virginia, in an urban area, even though it's still relatively small town in the grand scale of the United States.
Yeah.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture, less than 2 weeks ago, announced that they will be giving away $3 million in grants for the development of urban agriculture. Our city has lots of vacant property in the city that is producing very little income via property tax, and it costs the city money because they have to mow the lots and maintain the appearance of the neighborhoods. So I'm sure that other urban locations in West Virginia have the same issue. Do you have a plan for encouraging urban agriculture in West Virginia?
Yes, when I was with Extension, we did some of that in Charleston and West Virginia and different areas with the vacant lots. And again, I think now more than ever, you're going to see more of this. The problem is going to be, now follow me with this, if you get somebody wanting to plant something and they've never planted it before, they plant it and then it dies. So this is very easy for them to become discouraged, you know. So we can't just say, okay, grow this. We have to have people that are going to willing to go out and help these people do that. And here again, it may be extension agents, it may be the Department of Agriculture, or it could be farmers or people that do high tunnels. It could be master gardeners, you know, that are willing to go out and help these people do that. And I think that is a very important thing. You're going to see more and more of that this year because of the virus and because of the shortage of stuff. And we have to, but once again, you've got to be careful of just saying, plant this, you know, what do you do with it? And how do you keep it alive or that? But it is a very good program and we want to continue that and really do it. And I'd like to mention one other thing here about urban, and it kind of ties in with sustainability. I have this crazy idea that instead of cities spraying or road banks or hills in their city or so forth, there's a lot of people that raise goats. And why can't they take the goats to the city and put up a predator fence and eat that stuff down instead of spraying it with herbicides or stuff like that? They're doing this in a few places, but it also may work in West Virginia because we have a lot of people that raise goats and it may be an extra thing for them to be able to do. But your so-called big time farmers and your so-called other people are not going to buy into this because it just sounds kind of crazy, but it does work. And I think it's an idea that we have to look at, you know.
So Dave, if you're elected, what is the one thing, if you had to pick just one thing that you could make happen in your term in office, what would it be?
Well, it's hard just to pick one thing. I mean, I would like to see, first of all, what I just mentioned about the small farms. I'd like to see the young people get into farming. I'd like to see the growth of agriculture and the farm to school and farm to table and all that. But the other thing I would like to do, I just wrote an article on this. This won't happen in my term, but in somebody down the road, I'd like to see some type of slaughter facility built in West Virginia that we could supply our pork and our cattle to the East Coast instead of waiting and depending on some other major industries to do that. But that's a long ways program, you know, and so forth. The poultry industry did that in Winchester with the Poultry Association. They built a place there. So that would be the two things I'd really be interested in. I have to overdose. Sorry about that.
That's okay. It's that seasonal allergy time.
I have allergies, yeah.
So we've talked about several different issues. What, in your opinion, are the three biggest issues facing farmers that we haven't touched on yet? And how do you propose to address them?
Well, I think that the three biggest issues that I have are things maybe we have mentioned. One is a grant writer or finding money for farmers to get started and to find them a market. The second one I would see would be getting young people into agriculture. And I think the third thing would be is to promote the interest of agriculture to people that don't know about agriculture. I think it's our job as people in agriculture to inform the public. Some people don't know where a gallon of milk comes from. Some people don't know where eggs come from, and I'm serious. I was in the legislature and I saw that, they didn't know. So one of my big jobs, I think, in that is going to be educating the public of how it's like when Kim started, she said that it's a very important thing. Try to think of something maybe that is not affected by agriculture. It's hard to do. It's tough. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges that I have as a commissioner is educating the public that agriculture is important. And it's not just a cow or a chicken, or a pig, it's a whole bunch of different items. Do you know that the Department of Agriculture inspects every feed or fertilizer or lime that's sold in West Virginia? So they have a huge job to protect you. And I think from this coronavirus, food safety is going to be another huge type of thing that we have to watch out for, because we don't know. That's why I'm so interested in the country of origin, on the products that we buy. I want to know where it came from. If you've ever traveled to a foreign country and seen some of their markets, I don't want to eat that meat if that's where it's coming from, so.
I've seen some pretty horrific videos lately on the internet.
Right.
Well, with that, we've come to the getting to know you, the person questions. These are to get to know you, the person, not the candidate. Hopefully these will be a little easier. So farming is difficult, sometimes back-breaking and heartbreaking work. It requires long hours without the certainty of knowing whether you will show a profit at the end of the year. The weather can ruin your crop or result in a bumper crop that lowers the price for everyone. It's like playing dice with Mother Nature. Given that, what made you decide to be a farmer?
I like God's plan of changing seasons. I like his plan of birth in the spring. I like the changing of the leaves, and all that. And I just love nature and what it brings to reality. I like to plant a seed and watch it grow. If you go to church and you study the Bible, God always used farming as an example. Plant your seed upon a rock, it won't grow, If you do it in the soil, it will grow. So from the beginning of time, farming has been a very important part of life. I have 3 children. 2 of them became doctors. Well, one became a doctor, one became a veterinarian. And I was positive because we lived on a farm, because they could see. They learned about birth. They learned about death. They learned about everything was not, great. So my wife and I, we've always loved it, and we like it for all those reasons I just said, because it has so many positives other than negatives. Have you ever noticed everybody talks about the positives? Even on the news, it's all negative, but there's a lot of good things going on. So that's why I became a farmer.
So, Dave, what is your single most favorite thing or place in West Virginia? And don't say the people of West Virginia, because they're not a thing or a place.
About my farm. I love the farm that we live on. We sit on the porch at night and we can see our cattle horses, so we could see turkeys. We could see geese and ducks and all the wildlife. We have three large ponds that we have here, and I think it's so restful and peaceful. And when I used to work with the university, we had all those people and the traffic in Morgantown. It was so great to come home and just be here in 100 acres and nobody was here. and during the virus, we've sure been blessed, because we can go out and do whatever we want to do, here on a farm, and there's nobody here. So I'd have to say the best place in West Virginia for me, if you ask me to just pick one, would be my farm, where we live and what we do.
That's physical distancing at its best.
That's right, yeah.
So what would you say are your personal core values?
I have three of those. I think God is first, my family, and the state of West Virginia. I think I put those in line as to what drives me and what keeps me going. And I've looked back at my life, and I've done so many different things and had the opportunity to do those. And a lot of times I wasn't planning those things. So somebody had to be directing me, and I believe that was my Lord, that was doing that. And I'm blessed with a wife. It's a wonder she's still with me, of all the things that we've been into, but we've had a good life, and we have three beautiful kids. And so I think that is the core of me. And I teach Sunday school. I enjoy that. That's good for me, because I learn as much as the students do.
So, Dave, what are you as an individual, not as a candidate, but an individual, passionate about?
Life. I think life is something that we need to embrace and enjoy. I don't think it's something that we should take for granted. I think it's something really good. And I love driving my horses, doing that. And I just have to say that it's the ability to live in the great state of West Virginia and in the United States, the greatest country in the world. And I'm passionate about all that.
So aside from your farm work, what do you like to do in your off time, even though that's probably very limited?
Yeah, my off time. Well, like I said, I like to drive my horses and work with them. I like to hunt, and I like to fish, and a few things like that. And my grandkids. I've had kind of a bad time here lately with being able to be with them, but that's what we like to do. We like to travel to their homes and visit with them. That's a great thing. But now we use Zoom and FaceTime and all that to be with them,
Well, last question. What is most unique about you as a person?
People probably would never know this about me, but I went to Fairmont State. It was called college back then. Now it's university. I played basketball for a guy by the name of Joe Ratton. And I became an NAIA All-American basketball player back when I was playing there. And I believe that's what helped me on my road to doing the things I've done, because I had name recognition. It taught me about being a team player. It taught me about working with people, and that you don't always have a yes answer, There's always, you have to kind of be flexible. And I guess my one key word, and I think it makes me a little more unique than other people, is I believe in communication. I know that now we're in an age of technology where it's easy to text somebody or something like that, but I like to pick up the phone and call them, or I like to go sit down and see you face to face, if I could do that. When I was director of extension, I had some people that particularly didn't care for each other, and they would only text or email. So I would get those people together and make them sit down and say, here, talk to each other. You know, communication is the most important thing there is. Even in your family life, in your marriage, you got to talk, you know, or something will go bad. So I think I'm unique in that way, and I'm most generally positive. You know, I try to find a positive thing about whatever it might be. You know, that's why I've looked at this coronavirus, and I've tried to look at it as find some positives out of it. Not remember the old hee-haw program that said those guys laying on the floor and say, "Woe is me. If I had no luck, for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all." I mean, some people are like that, you know. So I like to communicate. I like to be positive, and I still go back to Fairmont State. That's what got me started. And I come from a little town here. My dad was a coal miner, and we had nothing. You know, you talk about giving food away. We used to go up to the old roller rink, and we get cheese, we get beans, flour, powdered milk. And that's what we lived on for a lot of years, you know. They were called commodities back then. And so I think that, and my parents really helped me.
That cheese was the best cheese I've ever had in my life.
It was.
I
I
eat
know.
cheeses from all over the world, but I loved that
Yeah.
cheese.
It was
Probably,
really
you know, the remembering it fondly from being with my grandparents. I'm sure that
good.
colors that memory, but I remember loving that cheese when I was a kid. Well, with that, we've come to the end. We'd like to give you a few minutes to tell us and the voters anything else you feel like we need to know about you, how to get in touch with you, how to get more information on your campaign or your plans, how to get involved, donate, etc.
I have a website, and I also have a YouTube channel. And the YouTube sign-in thing was, I don't know, it must have been 4 feet long. But if they have YouTube, if they just go in and type my name and say Dave Miller for West Virginia Ag Commissioner, it'll come up. But you know, they give us that was terrible to get into that. So people can do that. People can look, they can request me on Facebook, you know, friend me and so forth. My phone number is on there. And I also have not a website, but a web page that has a page on it. And they can find all that if they want to contact me or talk to me or phone me or whatever. I get a lot of people that message me on Messenger and things like that. But we've tried to run a grassroots campaign. We didn't try to raise too much money because I didn't want to be beholden to a bunch of people. And what they need to know about me, I'm in me. You know, what you see is what you get. I'm not trying to be anything else or whatever, just a person that's worked hard all his life and trying to make a go of it. So I thank you very much for having me on.
Well, Dave, we want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us and to, you know, put the information out there for the voters to see. And we have enjoyed talking to you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Everyone, remember, wash your hands. Bye.
Bye.